Good evening, everyone. Welcome to one more session. Thank you very much. I invite you all to join our group to start the session. Another wonderful evening, many things happening in the world, and we are here planting another seed in this material world, so that soon it will germinate and we can harvest the fruits of a material, spiritual, and moral evolution. To this end, again, as we did in the previous session, I make available this space so that any member of any brotherhood suggests a theme so that we can discuss here at this time, and that everyone who can contribute to this theme also speaks. Thank you very much. Being of Light, number 1. Good evening, everyone. It is with great pleasure that I come here to speak for the first time about our brotherhood. We are quite far away from the Brasilis land. Our main members are a long way from here, but we know that is physically. We know that energetically we all belong to the same plane, and it is this interesting subject that I bring here, so that we can discuss a little about the material, spiritual, and mental planes, and how these planes interact with one another. I think it is important that we bring these concepts so that in a next step, human beings with the knowledge of these planes, knowing how planes work, can be prepared for the changes that are being proposed in the new age. We know from the meetings we participate in spirituality of the great ascended masters what changes will occur, not in the concepts and dynamics of the planes, but in the access to these planes. Today, the access are quite limited, especially for humans who are on the planet Earth. However, it is important to mention that there are means of access for human beings to the planes beyond the material plane. This is important to say. So let us go by parts. Let us talk about the concepts of the planes. Let us say that in the same physical space, in the case of planet Earth, there are several planes, and these various planes interact. There is an exceptionally large interaction between them. We have the material plane where everything happens to humans. We can say that it is the plane of the five senses. But we have planes like the astral that is nothing more than a different dimension from the plane where human beings live. The astral plane physically shares the same spaces with human beings, but as it is another dimension, energetic vibrations in which it manifests are different. It is possible to live on two different planes in the same physical space. To make it clearer to human beings, it is as if there are waves or different energies that divide these dimensions. So, in the human dimension, the sight and the hearing of human beings work at a certain frequency, and in the astral plane, the sight of beings living in this plane is different because it works in another frequency. That is why most human beings still cannot visualize beings from the astral plane, with some rare exceptions that we call mediums. for having a capacity of vision or hearing in addition to the normal spectrum that the human being reaches. That is the explanation why some people can visualize beings from other planes and the vast majority cannot. When we talk about what changes will occur in the new age, it is that more people will be able to view images with a higher spectrum of frequency. In short, people of the new age will be able to see spirits. They will be able to communicate more easily with the spirits. To this end, of course, people will have in their DNA differentiated characteristics that will be given to these people at the time of their reincarnation plan, which we have talked about a lot previously. Therefore, I would like to ask if any other spirit of light wants to complement to this issue, so that we can give a proper basis, and in a second moment we can talk more about what will happen in the new age. Being of light number 2. As said by our companion, it is all about spectrums, spectral bands, both for sight and hearing, which are different. Everything in the world is energy. As we know, we live in an energy-driven world. I can go further. We live in a galaxy, or in a galaxy of a group of galaxies, and all this number of stars are driven by energy, by vibrations. Considering this subject, we can say that everything is interconnected. All universes, all galaxies, all planets are interconnected because of energies, because of vibrations. So time and space are interchangeable from energies. They are nothing more than different levels of energy in vibration. Considering this, it is easier to understand that in the same space as planet Earth, we have many beings living together, only that these beings coexist in different dimensions. Dimensions that are segregated by waves, by different frequency ranges. Human beings vibrate in a denser energy. That is why human beings' matter can be touched, because of the density of that matter. On the other hand, beings who are in other dimensions, such as the astral plane and the spiritual plane, are made of more subtle, less dense matters. Therefore, in a different energy range and terms of vision and in terms of hearing. So, in the room that our friend Master Tanaka and Channel are, there are several beings of different vibrations sharing the same space. However, there is no interaction between these beings because of the differences in frequencies. Beings of light are differentiated beings because they possess an even more subtle matter than the beings in the astral plane. And they also work in a range of vision and hearing even more different, much superior. This subtlety, this different vibration achieved by the beings of light can only be achieved when there is a higher degree that is conquered with actions both in the material world and in the astral world. So the more positive actions the human being or the being in the astral plane can vibrate or learn to vibrate, the greater the degree of spiritual evolution. Thus, when a human being is vibrating at a certain frequency, he suffers influences from beings that vibrate at the same frequency. Because if you vibrate positively, you will receive influences from beings of the spiritual plane that are good. If you vibrate a denser, negative energy, you will only be able to reach beings whose energy is equivalent to your energy, that is, the astral plane. Basically, this is the definition. I think that is what our companion wanted to transmit here. Continuing, we know that, for example, Master Tanaka and Mr. Channel allow us to use this physical body for us to communicate. But this is only possible because of the vibrations of the physical bodies of both. And these vibrations are only achieved by the acts and thoughts they have been having during their lifetime. Therefore, these positive vibrations are what allow us to communicate, to contact them. Nowadays, very few people have this ability, but it is important to say that there are no physical requirements for this communication to be achieved. That is, communication between human beings and beings from other planes can be performed by any human being. It is only necessary to have the proper knowledge and vibrate in the proper energy for this to happen. If one vibrates in a densest, most negative energy, it will capture communication from beings of the astral plane. And if the vibration is more subtle, they will capture the communications of the beings of light. Speaking a little more about this issue, it is important that for this communication to be established, the relationship between the human being and the other planes must be properly increased for it to be carried out. Today, we know and have already commented in our sessions that most human beings have an exceedingly small relationship with other planes. Practically, this boils down to what is called light cord or silver cord, because only a small dose of energy is what connects the human being to these planes. In this case, taking as an example again Mr. Tanaka and our channel, we can say that the light cord of both is much more than a cord. It is a tube of light of relatively extensive dimensions. This extension of the tube of light allows a larger energy to be exchanged between them and the plane of light. This way, communication becomes much easier. Interaction also with the astral and the spiritual planes becomes much easier. For the beings of the new age, the cord of light will extend to a tube of light, as in our example. And most human beings, or a much larger number of human beings, will have access to the spiritual world. To understand this, the children, the newborn, have a very extensive channel of light. And through this, it is possible for the spiritual plane to protect the children, the newborns, which you call guardian angels. As age advances, this channel of light tends to decrease because of beliefs, preconcepts, fears, and other human feelings that are absorbed through the collective consciousness of humanity. And because of these preconcepts, beliefs, and other negative feelings, the tube of light is increasingly decreasing, and consequently, the communication between spirits and the human being is becoming increasingly difficult. Even communication through intuitions become increasingly difficult. In some cases, this ends up happening in an even worse way. Because of actions and acts, not only communication with beings of light diminish, but the energy emanating become increasingly dense. This allows the access of low-spirited beings, which for the most part is formed by spirits that you on earth called obsessives, and so they start dominating human beings, influencing them even more to vibrate negatively. In other words, they are spirits of a dense energy that seek humans to satisfy their needs linked to the physical body. Mostly, they are addictions like alcohol, drugs, sex. So, these beings influence human beings to continue their degenerative actions and attitudes. Those beings who are after alcohol instigate the human beings to consume more alcohol to satisfy its denser energies. And there is a vicious circle in the case that increasingly causes the human being to get the energy increasingly denser. That is why the cure for an addict is so complicated, because we can say that it is a human being struggling with several dense energy beings to get rid of addiction. Therefore, in order for this energy to be modified to the point of no longer being affected by them, it is necessary to have a very great willpower of the human being to take action, to perform actions so that his energy is uplifted. This is the main mechanism between the material, astral, and spiritual worlds. On the other hand, faith, prayer, and meditation are actions that can raise the energy of the human being, thus enabling the communication and influence of high energy spirits to help them. So, see that the whole mechanism, both on the positive side and on the negative side, works in the same way, through energies, through vibration. If today's human beings understood this mechanism and acted in a way that always sought positive energy for their evolution, we understand that the material world could be much better. It is for this reason that spirituality has decided that some selected beings keep their tube of light for longer, so that they can increasingly defend themselves from the astral world and from the attitudes of other human beings or their environment, in order not to allow their tube of light to decrease. Not only in the early stages of their lives, as newborns or during childhood, but throughout the life of these human beings. This is how spirituality saw that it would be the most appropriate way for this spiritual evolution. However, as already said before, although the physical constitution of these people allowed this tube of light to remain in its original size from childhood up until its last breath, if the human being has negative actions, the mechanism will work in the same way. That is, the tube of light will decrease if the actions that are taken by humans are negative. Therefore, even for the human defined with a special characteristic, if he does not act with righteousness in his attitudes, he will have his tube of light decreased. This is what has been happening with some people who had in their reincarnation plan a beautiful mission of leadership, of evolution in the spiritual world, and end up reaching negativity because of greed or because of ego and other temptations of the world that cause this energy to be diminished. Since spirits cannot influence people's free will, nothing can be done from the spiritual world. And that is why these sessions are so important to the evolution of humanity. The purpose of this disclosure is to raise awareness of the human beings who came up with a reincarnation plan so beautiful and well defined that they do not swerve from the path of good and do not let this tube of light diminish. That is very important. Mentor. Well, I believe that the information exposed here was especially important and will help plant one more seed for human beings to seek spiritual evolution. It is important to reach an energy level in which we no longer need to pass through the trials here on the physical plane. Therefore, the frequent incarnations for each spirit aim to reach the spiritual level high enough that new reincarnations on planet Earth are no longer needed. All right? Thank you again to everyone for this session, and I hope to count on all of you in the next sessions. So be it. Thank God.